Hi, welcome to the Football's Football Show. Joining me today, Alan Ruff, and our special guest is cult hero, skillful midfielder, former Hibs and Kilmarnock assistant manager, the Scottish Tony Parks, Gerry McCabe. I don't know who wrote that, KB, but that must have been you.
Tony Parks.
Remember Tony Parks at Blackburn? He used to get number 2 jobs everywhere.
Oh, aye.
So that was actually, you're the Scottish version of that.
All right. I was thinking Tony Parks, a goalkeeper.
Bobby Williamson,
Aye.
Paul Hartley, Jim McIntyre.
Jim McIntyre.
You were the go-to guy, but it's great to have you on, KB. We'll talk about a wider range of stuff, area stuff here. SPL shut the door on a possible expansion of the top division. Nominees for Manager of the Year been revealed, and the Championship goes down to the wire on Friday night. Firstly, KB, get your thoughts on this. Why do you think that the SPFL don't want an extended top division?
I think it's down to finances. This has been debated a long time ago to try and get a bigger league, but I think most of the teams they want the Celtic and Rangers at the ground at least twice, in the season. Obviously if they get the cup, that's a bonus. I think I've always, with a meeting I remember a long time ago, I think it was at Douglas Park, and I think Neil Doncaster and that was there, and everybody was talking about it at the time, and they're saying if you had 18 teams in the league, you would have 34 league games, plus your cup games. But they came out and their answer was it's not financially viable. And I don't understand that, because I honestly think you've got teams in the Championship, Falkirk, Dunfermline, teams that are quite well supported. And I felt, the time it would have been great if the league would have been expanded. And I think we're in a situation with our league. We talk about relegation, really, about October, November, who's going to be in the dogfight and all this. And very few clubs are reluctant to bring young players in, because they don't want to put them in that situation. They feel that if they're going to go to a situation, it needs to be experienced players. And I just think I'd like to see it extend. It was 16 or even 18.
It's obviously the managers want it, isn't it? Every time we have a manager in here and we ask him that question, there's no hesitation. They want a change. So it obviously must be the money. It's usually the money people. Aye. The people that own the club, the people who look at the finances, or what happens if we don't get that game or don't get that game. Because the other thing that managers always talk about is budgets. So they know what they're bringing in at the end of the year, and all of a sudden, if they're not bringing X amount of pounds because they're not playing that many games, and it's the manager that gets hit.
I think because obviously Sky's so involved, the games that are involved in, the money they get off Sky. But I feel, see, say you were up at Kilmarnock or whatever, Ayr or Falkirk or that, and Celtic or Rangers were coming to your town once a season, that game at home and a game away. And I feel everybody would come out to that game, They would want to be at the game, but they've got it on the TV and they're saying, we can watch it on TV. And I just feel, as I say, I think it must be financial. I don't, but I think we've got to look at the bigger picture. I think if we had a bigger league and we started to see more younger boys coming through, we've got academies. Why get academies, if these guys are not going to get a chance, And I think it would benefit in the long run our national team as well. I think it would produce better players. Yeah,
I think obviously as well, KB, I think when you look at the young players that are not coming through, I mean, obviously you were a coach at Hibs, which we'll go into later on. You inherited a great squad of young players, but Bobby played them, and that was the key thing for me. But I think you've got managers, you're right, are reluctant now because they're under so much pressure. I think with social media and all that as well now, I think you've got managers 3, 4, 5 bad results, and particularly Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, the bigger clubs. They're always, when you look at the turnover of the managers of those 3 clubs in the last 2 or 3 years, they've been through managers like those assaults. So I do think an extended league would take the pressure off of managers and would give them more avenues to play younger players.
I think so, Tom. As Ruffy says, the managers want it, but it's upstairs. They're looking at the finances and they're calling the shots. Doesn't matter, and rather than listening to the football people, they're listening to the business side of it, and that's what I feel. As you're saying, you were talking about, when Bobby was at Hibs, we were in a situation because we had to play them, because they were trying to get rid of a lot of the bigger hitters at the time. But it's been on so long. As I say, they've got these academies, and I think academies are okay up to about 17-year-old. Personally, I would bring back reserve football. Bring back players that are not playing this Saturday. I know they think that but players don't want to play in reserve football. My experience when I was at Hibs when under Eddie Turnbull, I was playing on a Monday night, maybe at Tynecastle, John Blackley coming back from injury, Pat Stanton, John Brownlee, guys like that, Alec Edwards, guys, you're playing with right top players, you're internationals, and you're saying to yourself, and I think you learn quicker and better, you learn more off these guys. Aye. And rather than you're saying 17-year-olds, like 18-year-olds, under 20s and that, and I'm saying, why? Because some 18s, 17-year-olds are better than some 20-year-old players. But I think they're curtailed and they're stifled and they're no willing to do that. Then again, it'll be down to finances. Do they want reserve football? Would a player say, oh, you're playing the reserves on Monday night? Would they take the huff now and take it? I think players wanted to play them, but you just get themselves back in. Because I don't know if players are in first team players are playing any games when they're injured. I think they just go through rehab.
Bounce game or something.
Aye,
Bounce game, but they're not playing in compared. No, as I say, and I think it worked both ways. The players getting back to your fitness, match fitness, plus you're helping young boys to come through.
Yeah, I said I loved playing reserve football at Hibs when you were the manager. Assistant manager.
That was Bobby.
That was Bobby. But I always remember.
I kept pushing for.
Can you remember Scott Brown's first game in the reserves against Hearts? I've got a quick story about that. Matthias Dumby was supposed to have us playing the reserves. I must have been coming back from injury, Kiwi, and I wasn't playing the Saturday. Anyway, so we came into the team and Dumby pulled out in the warm up, and Scott Brown was on the bench. Just this young kid. Nobody even seen him before. We did strike with Hernies. And I remember, I don't know if you were taking the team or Jim Clark was taking the team, and they'd said, right, boys, we're making a change. Matthias is injured, and this is Scott, this is Bruni. He's going to be playing right back.
Played right back, that's right.
Played right back,
yep,
so
yep.
Easter Road, remember about 1,000 fans there at Easter Road, and John Louis Valois was playing for Hearts. He must have been coming back from injury. He was a first team player. And I see him out on the left hand side, and I see this wee boy Bruni at right back, and I'm thinking, he's going to roast him. And I'll never forget it. The ball get played out to Valois, first minute of the game, and wee Bruni just came from nowhere. Bang! Put him right in front of the dugout at Easter Road, and all the Hibs fans are roaring.
You're giving it a love.
And I remember turning around to big Andy Webster and going, I don't even know who that is, by the way. He just smashed him, and that was Bruni. He started at right back, didn't he?
Right back. He actually played right wing, then we moved him up front.
Aye.
See the story there. See when we found out, we get told that Bruni's contract was up. Right, he was a YTS at the time.
Aye.
So Bobby got hold of John Park, right, and he says, boy, Scott Brown, his contract's up at the end of the season. He says, get him sorted, get him on a 2-year contract. And I think John Park was looking at him going, 2 years? Do you rail? And Bobby says, he was my first team the next 2 or 3 weeks. And he was, because he's superstars here, but when he came in, he just won his points, didn't fear them. He's coming in, who's this? And just running about and smashing people. Even when he came into the first team dressing room, he was one of the boys right away, he wasn't overawed or nothing, just full of cheek, and that was just the way he was, he just, who cares what somebody says, who cares, it's the first team players and that, and that's what I liked about him, I don't mean in a bad way, he just didn't go out there and shrivel up, or play with such and such, play with Tam and all that, but these guys...
He came in and took my place up front, because it was, I remember the game he made his debut in Aberdeen at home, and it was me and Garry O'Connor started up front, and the two of us came off injured, and Riordan come on and Scott Brown come on.
Aye.
And I remember me and Big Garry are sitting on the bench, we're thinking, these two wee guys are going on, we'll be all right. Fucking two of them are brilliant. Couldn't get back in the team, and he stuck with Scott Brown and ended up playing towards the end of the season, all the way up front. Well, couldn't get back in the team.
We played Celtic at Easter Road, and Bruni was, in the middle of the park, and Paul Lambert come by your dugout and he's shouting at us, hey, he's going to get out there at number 8. And we were just say it was number 8, Bruni was at the time. What's going on? He said, he's causing eruptions, he's going to cause a riot. Because he was squaring up to Big Bobo Baldy. And I think when he went to Celtic, Big Bobo would pull him out about it. But he was squaring up with guys, he wasn't caring, he was just staring at that, just that cheeky devilment in him. And that's what Bobby liked about him. He says, and he does a love, because when we went in there, Tom, first thing we thought, right, we're going to a big club, look at the squad of players, go, great squad of players, right, because what with this, no bother. But as soon as we get in there, a couple of days later, Rod Petrie pulled Bobby in. You need to get ready Arpin on, Paco Luna, De La Cruz, Lawson. Bobby said, what do you mean? Says, too big of money on here, but we need to get rid of it. We can't get him. Bobby said, well, how are we going to get rid of them if they're on contract? We need to do something with that. Celtic, De La Cruz, right enough, and Lawson. And couldn't he play John O'Neill as well?
That's right, he's appearance money.
Was he appearance? We're like, serious? you know, and that's how Bruni, Whittaker, Kevin Thomson and Riordan got their chance. Garry O'Connor was still, I think he'd been in before, I think he had a couple of games before we got there, Tom. And I'm saying, right, got to go with this, got to go with that, but they just keyed us off because won a right few games in there, didn't it? That's when then yourself and that coming back with Nid and all that, with some, you know, some right good boys. And as I says, Riordan, what a finish he was, you know, I couldn't believe this boy, you know, the left and right foot. I know you scored 35 yarders and all that, you know, but Riordan.
Can you remember you used to train at Dalgety Bay? Remember training at Dalgety Bay? I don't know why Hibs trained there anyway.
Because we never else did.
Do you remember the big boy Morton Hildegard, the goalie?
Aye.
So he just signed for Hibs, right? This big Danish boy. Remember he's massive, right? So Cavey used to take us for finishing at the end of, on a Friday, at the end of training, right? So it was me, Scott Brown, Garry O'Connor, Riordan and Stephen Dobie. That was our 5 forwards, right?
Aye.
So day finishing, we soon clocked that the big Hildegard couldn't get down to his left-hand side. Remember, Cavey? Right, so we were like, hit it to his left, and I could just see he just signed. And Bobby was standing watching me, Ian Westwater and him, and we just kept putting it down to his left, and he couldn't get down. And I can see Bobby's going like, oh, fuck's this, I've signed here. I think he played again for Hibs. I think he played it after that first training session. They must have thought he was hopeless.
I know, because Bobby says to that was your sign to me. I said, my sign. See, I didn't even know who he was.
You know, of the two of them when they were young, everybody was raving, obviously, about Kevin Thomson.
Yeah, Tomo.
Who did you think was the best between
Thomson and Brown? Who do you think would have the better career?
Who would
who would you have thought when you were at Hibs? Who would go on?
I thought Tomo, right? Because Tomo was technically very good on the ball and passed the ball and all that, but Bruni made up with enthusiasm. Bruni, you wouldn't have said Bruni was a great player at Hibs, you know. He's running about as soon as I'm got there. But I thought when Bruni got older, went to Celtic, he was a far better player than a lot of, you know, people thought he was. You know, he could pass the ball, and he had to be, you know, probably learned that through, you know, and maybe learned that after we left. But I thought Tomo was one of these guys, technically very good, very comfortable in the ball and that. He got a bad injury actually when we were there, and he was nowhere near him. I think it was against Mullum or Partick, and his knee went, and he was out for a while. But by the time he came back, we left. I think we'd left, and when Tony Mowbray came in, and that was the thing when Tony came in, he had all these good players to work with, but he got a lot of praise and saying, "Look at the Hibs team now," and that, but.
Do you think Bobby never got enough credit for that?
I was just going to say, I thought that Bobby gave them the chance, and if we'd have got another chance to work with them, you know, and they said in the blossom, they were always going to be a good team. They were always going to get better because they were another year in the Premiership and they had that experience. So they were always going to become better players. But I just thought Tomo, and obviously they moved to Rangers, then he went down to Middlesbrough, wasn't it? Tomo, and Bruni obviously Celtic, and the difference had that Bruni had this great desire about him and just didn't care, you know, that down. And then when Gordon Strachan gave him the captaincy, I think that sort of gave him that next level to go, right, I've got this, you know. He didn't want him to take that. He didn't want to take that enthusiasm he had about, you know, getting in about people and the cheek and that he had, you know, the devilment was the same. But I think he matured better and he started to play better football and learn his position, whereas he used to run all over the park, and he would tell you that himself. But as I says, Tomo was technically, I thought Whittaker was very good, but the only thing with Whittaker, he was a very quiet boy, very, you know, and he wasn't maybe compared to all you use.
It's amazing that Bruni and Whittaker are
I know,
assistant
short and cheese, you know, that's what I like, because that's what I like on the park. One was volatile and the other one was so quiet. Riordan, I always said, right, if this guy gets his head together.
Riordan was the best at his all, wasn't he?
Technically, finisher. Oh, left foot and right foot, you know, and he's just, even when he got his move to Celtic, I don't know what happened there, but, well, I think I know what happened, you know, where Deeks came from, you know, come from Edinburgh and the environment he grew up in that, you know, but to get away from all that, and Garry O'Connor was another one. Garry was just a strong big boy, you know, and he could score goals. And they had that, and I don't think if we had 4 boys come through at the time, I know you were there and you were established at the time, and if we didn't have them coming through, we'd have been in right trouble, I thought. Well, end up we didn't stay longer, but they guys gave us a lift right through. As Tom says, we beat Celtic in the quarter-finals, we beat Rangers in the semi-finals, and you beat Livingston in the final. I think that was the nail in the coffin for Bobby.
I think Ron Petrie would be more than happy with the amount of money you must have brought in. These players,
Oh,
they're moving on.
look at them. You're right. But at the time, didn't think he was thinking that way, you know. And they were saying, then obviously when Tony Mowbray came in and the boys went on to another level, and I always thought they were going to have gone to another level anyway, you know. They would have. But I just wish Bobby would get more time and maybe get more credit for what he'd done, you know. And Bobby was different for everybody else. I've worked with him, I know Bobby, and you probably know Bobby yourself, you know Tom. But he wasn't scared. He done it at Kilmarnock. He threw, like say, Boydie in.
Burton
Bagan, right away. Gary Hay, Canero, all these guys, they jack him out. He threw it, he says, I'm going to play them. And he done it, you know. He wasn't scared, he didn't. And I must admit, at Kilmarnock, they let him do it. They says, I get the boys in. Whereas I thought we were more forced to bring in the boys at the time because we couldn't play certain players at Hibs. So it was forced upon them a bit, you know.
You're talking about Bobby there, we obviously know him well. You worked with him in various clubs. How did that partnership with you and Bobby work so well?
Well, you know something, this is true. We played at Clydebank together, and Bobby went on to Rangers, and Tam Coyne went on to Dundee United, I think, at the time, and I wasn't happy because we just missed out in promotion, and Stephen said, we'll build the team next year and we'll win the league next year and that. So I signed a new contract, 2 weeks later, sold Bobby and Tam. So anyway, so we always kept in touch, and we're always, you know, even when we was with Rangers, and he went away down to West Brom, I think Jimmy Nicholl come back in a swap deal. And we're always pals, always kept in touch. And I remember I was still playing, and I just finished up with Arbroath, and Shelton phoned me, and they says, you fancy coming in, sign for a year and that? I was like, don't know if I want to go back to junior. I started it, I played junior when I was 16.
Did they give you a big envelope?
He gave me a wee envelope. Just a stamp on it, nothing else. So anyway, I went there and I played 3 games, so I get a phone call from Bobby, and Alex Totten had just been sacked. He's asked Bobby come in and take him for a few games and see how they go on. So Bobby said, do you want to come in and help us? And I says, can I? I says, I've just signed with Shelton. He started shouting on the phone, what do you mean Shelton? You're 40, 41. You shouldn't be playing for him. No, again, this rubbish trying to shout on the phone. I said, Bobby, hey, look. He goes like that. Come in. Jimmy Clark's coming in as well. Me, you and Jimmy and that. We'll get a go here. You never know what will happen. I says, right, let me think about it. He said, what do you mean, let you think about it? You better be in here on Monday. So I phoned the guy at Shocks and I said, look, I've been offered again to Kilmarnock, you know. He'll put, you know, a wee chance of getting the job. I don't know. I says, but I says, you mind if I just tear the contract up? So I said to Bob, I says, look, I'll get you whatever you want. I'll get you, see if I can get you a bag of boss and some training gear and all that. Because I ain't spent no money, you know. I had spent it that time. So anyway, Bobby went in the Monday, and I went in for a few, I helped him out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I had a wee job as well. So we done well, and we finally got away from relegation. Gary Holt scored in the second last game of the season against Aberdeen. It saved us, you know. And we got to the cup final.
Against Falkirk?
Falkirk. He ended up, we got a 2-year contract, then we got another 3-year contract and 2, so I was there. So Bobby keeps reminding me, he goes, aye, you wanted to stay at Shortcomings. He says, then we got the Hibs job, then we went to Plymouth and that. But, and that's it. And see, Clarkie...
Bobby didn't take a lot of the training, didn't he?
No.
No.
But he used to annoy the life out of you. Because me and Clarkie used to go up and set things up, and Bobby go, I've changed it, and go like that. You just help you put all the coins in doing this, and say, I'm going to change, I'm going to do that. I say, well, love the coins yourself. I say, I'm not loved him, Clarkie, like, he just loved him. Clarkie was a sort of in between us, you know. Me and Bobby used to, because I knew him for the football days, Clarkie, well, he was at Kilmarnock, but me and Bobby, a friendship of pals, we were pals, it was just the coach and the manager. And Clarkie was that wee sort of buffer in between. Clarkie was the mayor. Laid back and saying, right, you know, whereas me and Bobby, you know, different altogether. And I think that's how it worked, you know. And I still keep in touch with Clarkie all the time. Great lad, great guy to work with. And Bobby and that, it was just, Bobby was off the wall at times, wasn't he? You know, as you say, he came in.
It was quite simple in his instructions as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, get ready. See once you're ready and that, right? That's the team.
We've spoken about it a few times. We used to just come onto the bus and just say same team, same subs. And you're out at 2:15 with Gerry McCabe, shut the door there and just give her a wrong sausage or something. I don't know what he was eating.
Just saying that, right, make sure you bring him in. Don't be bringing them in late. And I'm going, you're right to do shooting. And I'm going, I need to get in. I want their shot. And Bobby says, tell you bring him in here. 15 minutes or something. I says, look, boys, we're ready anyway.
Was he sort of old school? Did he bring a lot of the managers that he'd played with?
Aye, I think he's, maybe tapped into a little bit. Bobby was just, you had to know Bobby, right? You'd think, the cheekiest guy in the world, he just, every day say something in front of people and that, And I remember, this is a true story, we're up at Stirling doing, it was a coaching thing, we're in at the Dunblane Hotel, right, and we were a meeting, and we're up sitting, we're part of a pro licence and that. So, Big Roy, that was it, Roy Aitken, and me and Bobby and I were sitting near the back, and Roy shouted up a question, something about, something to do with Europe, and I think Roy was at Aberdeen at the time, right, something to do with Europe. Bobby says, you're no need to worry about it, you're not being Europe this year. Big Roy just turned around, I'm sliding down the chair like that. I'm sliding away down the chair like that. I said, and Bobby's like, I said, what are you doing? He goes like, he just come out with things. He just say things before he thought, But he used to, he'd loved it when he was at Rangers with Big Jock and all that, and he used to keep in touch with them and tap into them. But he went in these coaching courses when he was in with the coaches and that, it just didn't hold back with him, He's just, sometimes, you're saying, hey, what's you're saying? You can't say in front of such and such, you can't do this, that. Well, we just came out with it, and he's still the same,
In his pre-season training, remember we trained at Chapel Row?
Aye.
I was the one I got lost. I couldn't do long distance running. I couldn't do it.
Just on the Green Bridge, and I had all.
He had it all mapped out, and so we started off, and 10 minutes into it, I was blowing out my arse. I just couldn't do long distance.
I know.
So then I stopped, and I just went, on you go, boys. I'll just jog.
Tag along.
And then I got off the beaten path. So and then I get lost, and I'm shouting. They must have been going, where's McManus? Where is he?
Bobby sent me away looking for you.
He's shouting, Tom. I'm like, Cavey, I'm in here, I'm lost.
A circle, and something, the same thing happened to Ian Durant when we took him round McKillie, and before we went round, Ian Durant, he says, see if I don't get round this, Cavey, I've chucked it, I'm retired, right? I said, don't be silly, you'll get round. So we used to have guys, the fast runners at the back, so they all went within a minute, right, the slowest runners, right, to go first to, because they get a good start, 10 minutes in front of everybody, still getting beat by about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I remember when Ian Durant said, same like yourself, Tom, and I'm on the way round, Bobby says, you need to get him. Well, we're going back to Strathclyde Park, the Palace Grounds for the lunch, and we're going out in the afternoon. So as I way around, I'm shouting. Next minute I see this wee figure walking away down in front of me. I say, there he's there. I'm shouting, Jasper. When he turned round, he kept walking. So I got home and I says, he says, don't you talk to me, right? And I goes, you lost? Everybody's been back about an hour. They're away for their lunch. Told you I've chucked it. That's me chucked it. I said, what happened? He says, I ran in a tree to do a toilet and I come back out and everybody's away. I said, it's just a circle. Like you got lost in it, it's a circle. And I says, Moan, get back and get lunch. He said, I've told you I've chucked it, I'll not be back. Right? So anyway, going back for a lunch, and I said to Bobby, look, he's chucking it, he's still coming back. I'll leave him. Tell him to take the afternoon off. So I said, Jasper, just get him, just take the afternoon off and that. Because, I didn't think we'd have done it as well. See his knee, and I'm saying, but he done it, he was fit. But anyway, says like, I told you I'll not be back, right, okay, right, anyway. And the next day at 9 o'clock, he's sitting there with Jasper, he's in training. Bobby, I was just ready to say, I thought you were chucking it. Bobby said, don't even know your mouth, and he just get ready and that, But see, when we were at Hibs time, we didn't have a training ground, Ruffy.
Yeah, we did.
Well,
at Hibs we were the same. We used to travel about to Fetty's College and up the Holyrood.
Doing all that with the goals in the van, the top of the van.
Remember the first training session, we were up at the barracks,
Drecon.
Aye, Drecon. Remember the fight, is it David's, the French boy?
David's Telly.
Aye. Remember him and Paul Ferry?
Aye, that's right.
I think one of their first training session next minute, Big Paul would tackle and they punched him and go, oh no, Big Paul was the nicest guy in the world, wasn't he? Quietest guy in the world, and like that. What's going on here? So I run away there, right? And I just got out to try and get in amongst it. And Bobby says, remember what happened at Kilmarnock? Remember the big boy Whitty and Gus McPherson in it, and I jumped him in, I get punched in the head and I punched there and that. I'm trying to stop it, and Bobby says, just let them fight, let them fight.
We used to have a carry on going to training. We had a wee minibus, and with a lot of young boys in the team, wee Mickey Weir, Paul Kane, Gordon Hunter, Eddie May, and they all used to be up the back, carrying on, and we'd be down the front, me, Ralphie and Jackie Mack and Big Gordon Ray, and we'd be sitting down there trying to be sensible. And then we signed Dougie Bell. Dougie come down the front of the bus with us, and we're sitting in that and just chatting away, you know, and it was a wet day, a muddy day,
Aye.
and we're coming back from training. Thanks for this big dod of mud came for the back of the bus and hit Dougie in the side of the face. So we did. I knew about him, but I didn't know, you know, how fiery he was. And he went, "You threw that." Well, I can't remember who it was that threw it anyway. Just went up and back, just smashed him in the back of the bus. But that's what he was like. You know, you could.
Roughly, we played in the charity matches with Douglas. He's been sent off 3 times in charity matches.
Dougie Bell has.
Dougie, fighting, rolling about and all that. Aye, you just want to, if somebody takes a ball and Dougie gets involved, you know. And yet, see, every part, dead quiet, was sitting, we drinking off, you know.
We did a function at a training ground, and they were a man short. It was just that function where you dribble from one side of the part to the other, and the other person's in front of you.
Aye.
No, you're just dribbling back, and that. They were a player short, so I had to be the outfield player.
Right.
See, every time I go to the other end, it was blood coming out my eyes and my nose, and his elbows were all over the place. You know, just whacking you.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's not changed much. But as you were saying about the training, one time I went to Dunnigston, it would have been, me and Clark came up, we were talking about putting the cones and all that. Next minute, a guy in a tractor comes in. I said, what he's doing? I said, just getting ready for training, and the boys coming up. No training the other day. I'm cutting this grass. So he says, can you not cut it? He's an hour and a half, and I come back. He says, when do you think my shift's going to finish? And we thought he was saying, I says, okay, be all right. Made us lift the coats. I think we take it out to Portobello.
Exactly. My second day of training at Hibs, we'd nowhere to train, so we went up to Holyrood with the parks.
Aye.
We had a game. That was what was it then? The possibles versus the probables. That team, you know. And we're 10 minutes into the game. Next minute, a whistle. I says, Jack, man, who's that? He says, that's a parky. He says, just lie down. He'll be away in 5 minutes. Let's see your team. We're all lying on the ground, waiting in the parky, getting away so we can continue the game.
Gavy, obviously, you inherited a young squad of players, myself included.
Yes.
We had a few misdemeanours. Obviously, the main one was when we were in the Sunday Mail, which I think I was one of the ringleaders when we got done in the strip club. How did you and Bobby and Jim react to that? Because I know that, obviously, we all get fined a week's wages, and then the following week I get fined another week's wages after scoring at Tannadice. But
you went back and done it again?
I went back and done it again. But how did you react? How did you react to that when you seen ours in the paper?
Well, our biggest problem we had, and we knew we had a few rascals, but they were good rascals. You know, they were good. They weren't just full of fun. Yourself, Brebs. Well, then Zambernardi joined your guys like that. I mean, you, Deeks and O'Connor. We used to get in on a Monday morning, right? And Clarky would say, right, when we go for training, we'll get 18 or 16. I'm going, right, 18 or 16. He goes, we'll get 18 if everybody's in, everybody's fit. We'll get 16 of O'Connor and in the jail or something. I get left or something. But Bobby used to get calls and that, right? Taxi drivers that knew and calls. They've seen Deeks and O'Connor up to in the town and that. They were maybe a wee bit more discreet, but when they done it. But when that time I says to Bobby, goes, what do we do? I says, what can you do? And I goes like that, I says, like, they've not just been usual being boisterous and David in the day.
Sunday Mail stitched us up.
Aye. Well, you know, I mean, you knew what the paper's like because Bobby had got a warning a few times about papers, just watch people be following your players when they're in the clubs and all that. You know, I think Big Alec had tipped him off, you know, they'd done that when he was there, you know, just watch your players, just try and keep your... And I think because we were away through in Glasgow, right, and we weren't in... But we still heard about it, but... And Bobby just, well, you know, and growing up myself, says, Bobby, we weren't the angels ourselves, you know, when we were growing up, but obviously we're in a bit of a different position now, and, you know, we've just got to try and keep a lid on this, and, you know, we weren't doing great in the league. We weren't doing bad, but we weren't doing great.
That's right, aye.
And that was the biggest problem we had. And he goes like, you know, we're struggling to play such and such players because of the money we're on and that. And these, you know, got to depend on these boys like Tam and Brebs and all that guys that been there. But says they're going to let the hair down. But as he says, the problem is the press were following them and they knew what kind of guys over. You know, so we get through it. We had to get through it. We just says, And we didn't want to look weak. Bobby didn't want to look. He said, I need to look to it, I'm doing something here. And I says, okay, but you can't do any more than fine them, and that was it. Then you would say, right, lads, look, just behave yourselves or try, don't get caught what you're doing, but, that's the problem, they get caught.
They get caught, and then obviously we all get fined the week's wages. I think it was 5s, and then the week later, obviously,
you done the...
I scored, and then Bobby, oh
Bobby,
my God, after the game, man.
I know.
It was a winner, I don't know, I think we scored in the last minute or something.
Aye, and Bobby goes, what is he doing?
Aye.
I goes, I was kidding, I said, I've never seen him today, And me, Clarky, Clarky was just looking right ahead. What did they do? I said, I don't know, better as Bobby, But that's the way they were, I don't mind guys, because we grew up, when I played, and obviously you, Ruffy, and that, you guys, they went out and up to a wee bit of whatever mischief and all that. But that was just the culture at the time, and that, wasn't it? It wasn't just one or two done it. Everybody had players in their team that done it, and, the problem, it's even worse now if you got up to anything, with the social media, and you wouldn't get away with it now. Whereas, I think boys are just letting their hair down and that, but they always say they're a time and a place, but I says, Bobby, you need to deal with that, son.
Did you prefer being an assistant, KB, or I know you had a brief spell as a manager at Dumbarton, and you obviously had a brief spell at Hibs when Bobby left.
Aye.
Livingston away, you and Jim took the team, we get beat 4-1, and I remember your quote
for final fair.
Dumby and Yannick Zambernardi when you said good French players don't play in Scotland.
You have just proved that. I said that. I was just that angry. I says,
I remember that. That's the first time I've ever seen that side of you. You were always kind of happy-go-lucky because he took the team that day and we get pumped.
We get last game.
You absolutely roasted people.
I was going to go out and wee Clarky says, just might as well forget it, we're out here anyway, because Bobby was away, and I'm saying I'd like to win out, at least one, but it was just the way, those 4 goals, and I think the 2 of them tried to double it for the back, and I was like, Clarky was saying, just forget it, I said, I can't forget that, and I had to say it, I know, and see after I said it, I'm saying, I feel sorry, I says, no, I deserve that, and see the best about it, see me left, and we went to Plymouth, right, and I went away doing...
Signed him, didn't he?
Bobby never told me when I was doing that. Then it goes like, after I'd signed the contract, it says, right, Clarky didn't come down because Clarky was wee bit no well at the time, but he was going to come down. But anyway, Bobby says, right, that's the good news. Right, you want the bad news? I said, what's the bad news? He says, I've signed Doonby.
You've slaughtered him the last day of the season.
I says, he's that contract, mate. I says, I can't even with him again. And first, one of the pre-season games, we played Portsmouth. Harry Redknapp was in charge of Portsmouth, and who'd the big boy? It was a Kubu, big boy. Muscly guy up front. Aye, up front, strong as an ox.
Aye.
He threw Doonby a bit like that. Doonby was trying to muscle him out. He scored a hat-trick against him. We could beat 5-0, and he was so annoyed Doonby a bit. I says, told you, But anyway,
and the other one was Zambernardi in the 4-each game. Obviously, you remember the 4-each game with Hibs, we were 4-2 up with the boy Graham Weir scored 2. So that was my only ever derby goal. I'd scored, we were 2-0 up and 4-2 up.
Aye, that's right.
I think I'd come off and all that, and I'm thinking, Bobby had said, because Bobby hadn't won a derby and we were under P.
That's right.
We hadn't won a derby, 4-2 up. It was round about New Year, it was the third or second. It was.
Because see, we'd have won that. We'd have been into 3rd place.
Aye, and Bobby's like that before the game, listen, you do the business and all that, you have a few days after, it was a busy period.
That's right.
And I'd come off and I'm thinking, I've scored, I've beat Hearts at Tynecastle, I'm out for 2 or 3 days. And then Zambernardi, Boggett played up the line and a big boy, De Vries, muscled him and cut it back. 4-3, there's like 2 minutes left. And we took centre and they played it to Zambernardi and he just punted it straight down to Roddy McKenzie and Bobby Williamson, I'll never forget it, see if they fucking score here. Right? And he punted it, De Vries flicked it on and the boy Weir scored. And it was, remember they're all in the park and the dugout get panned in and Bobby threw a boot at him at full time.
What happened because like that, right, 4-3 was saying, right, it's nearly over.
Listen, there was a minute left or something.
We say to Big Mixu, go wide, we'll just get it up, we'll just boot it, we'll get it up to you, stay wide. So I think it was Zambernardi. Kicked it out the middle. So Big Mixu didn't stay wide, he run and just smashed where it was the centre. So they got a free kick and that's it, the big boy come in. And see when they done it at the time, I'll never forget, I think it was Levine and they're all in the party and that, and Bobby's stoning, and Bobby's going, lads, what are you waiting for? He says, wait to shake his on. I says, run on the party, never mind shaking his on. I says, he couldn't come in and shake our hand. And they were giving it Yahoo for it. So I walked into the dressing room, I think it was wee Tam McCone, I was still, right, and there was a big Gatorade barrel, you know, with all the Gator in. So I'm thinking it's full, you know. Hey, I'm thinking it's empty. So I volleyed it, I got run out, booted it, and didn't even move. And I'm like that. And I could see wee Tam McCone in the corner going like that. Shoulders getting up and down. And I couldn't even do nothing. I was nearly greeting. I nearly broke my foot. I says, first time we got a chance to beat Hearts, we never. Oh, it was a shocker, mate.
And Bobby just, it was quiet, shut up, and everybody just heeding their horns, couldn't believe it. And then he just fucking slaughtered San Bernardo.
Aye.
Remember Alec Ferguson threw a boot at Beckham and it hit him. See if this had hit him. The fucking took his head off.
Aye, that's
I picked up my boot and went, yeah, and threw him, and that was that's one of my abiding memories of Bobby. Was that 4 each game.
See if I went to Plymouth and he told me to sign San Bernardo, no. I just done myself out and I says, no, I'm getting him. But look, with some good times, you know, getting a final with the young boys we had.
Aye.
You know, and the boys in general were great and made some really good, but unfortunately we could tell to who we could play, you know. And Arpin, he was a good player, wasn't he?
Aye, Freddy Arpin. I remember his my comeback game against Everton in pre-season game, and I had my first game back for break my leg, and he stuck me through and I scored.
Right,
and they took my tap nut off in a friendly, but I went for 6 months. But I remember Freddy. If he made a run, he'd a lot of speed, he'd a lot of pace up front. If he'd made a run, he would find you. He was proper.
Who was identifying all these foreign players?
Well, they were, I don't know,
Arpin and San Bernardo and Doomby were there, weren't they? Before you came.
Aye, so is it, I don't know, did we bring it? Aye, no, they brought Doomby because when Bobby says to Rod Petrie, he says, right, if we get rid of these players, who they bring in? Maybe free transfers or Bosman, I think it was at the time. But De La Cruz and that was there, and Larson and Paco Luna.
Aye.
They were all there. But soon as they walked in, because what we got to do here? You know, we're struggling, we're fighting. The reason they brought us in because we're struggling to try and stay in the league, and we did stay in the league, but as I say, it was for the boys and that coming back. Tam and the four we brought in, the younger boys, would have been stuck. They got money for De La Cruz, right enough. I think they got 2 million or something like that, didn't they? And Lawson, 900,000.
Obviously, you played it in a different era, KB. You had a great career at Clydebank and Cork City and teams like that. Which modern day player would you like to have played with? That's playing the now. I know it's different. Obviously, it was a different era, but if you had to play with somebody that's playing the now.
Rodri, the Man City.
Aye,
I think he was. I know that De Bruyne's a player, but I think Rodri's a man that makes him tick. You know, I'd love to have played with some of the guy that just sat, go at the ball, engage the ball, done it simple and that.
aye.
Yeah. When at Clydebank and that, you know, I played with a guy called Marty Shoes. Marty was a box-to-box player and that. You know, he done a bit. Me, the modern day player for me, midfield player, Rodri.
Callum McGregor.
Callum McGregor. I like Callum McGregor. I was talking earlier about Pierre and I'm saying my biggest criticism of Callum McGregor, he didn't create enough, you know, for a guy so comfortable on the ball. You pass the ball, but you see him scoring goals now. But Callum McGregor is the type of player who sits and keeps it going, I did guys like that, you know. But for the pick, you know, I think the top player that I've seen the last few years and playing in that position is Rodri. You know who I'd love to have played alongside, but I'm not saying I'd have played with Rodri, but you're saying Callum McGregor does the same job for Celtic, doesn't he? You know, and that's very few players now. You know, I look at now and
do you enjoy football now and watching it, KB, or do you think it's changed a lot since?
I think it's changed.
I think it's not changed for the better. I think it's.
I definitely don't.
More athletes and
more athletes and more that. I don't see a lot of players playing off the cuff and that. You know,
Maverick types of players.
You know, where they done how like me, did Paul McStay and that playing. These guys, you didn't tell Paul McStay how you go and beat him, how to play and got on the ball and that. You the same probably, Durant at Rangers and that. Different types of players. There was a lot of midfield. When we played, well, I'd say it would be about 7 or 8 players in our team were all good players. They could all play, could take men on, they could go and do something. Now I feel it's the game's just
sanitised a bit.
Exactly. I think they've, you know, players will do. They're playing
overcoached a wee bit.
Yeah, playing the verge of safety rather than going and do something. You need to get 1 or 2. You would say go and express yourself, go and do something. But I think it comes from the coaching kids' time. I think kids are told at an early age, don't do this, don't do that, pass the ball as soon as you get it.
I think that's something to do with kind of Pep Guardiola and his style.
Well,
over the years that a lot of coaches and a lot of teams kind of copy the way he's played?
Aye, well, obviously they had the
Keep
pass,
the ball
pass,
and-
but they'd Messi, didn't they?
Yeah.
Neymar and guys like Suarez, Iniesta and Xavi, guys like that, who I don't believe for a minute these guys were told to get the ball past it. I think they were allowed to harness their skills and their ability. And I feel I would let a kid, 7, 8-year-old, let them go and try and beat men. Let them go and try and beat 2 or 3 players. See if they can do it. See if they're good at it. See if they've got that ability. And, you know, then if they get clattered after they beat a third of them, then they start to play with the head up. But I feel kids have got to be comfortable with the ball. I want to coach, when I say coach, let the kids do the basics. Learn the basics up to about 10, 12. Then learn them positions. And I think you would know. That's what I say about academies. See up until 17, you know if a guy's going to make the next step. When you would know, you would say, a guy's a good player, he could go to the next step. That's how I would get him in playing with reserve football. No put him in on under 18s, put him under the 19s. Let him go and flourish. And I think if you look at Man City now, the young boys that Pep's starting to throw in, and they're flourishing. You know, Foden was one of the first one he brought in, and you know the boy Nico Riley.
Riley.
Is it Nico Riley? But they're giving them the chances, but I don't think we allow it up here.
Do you think young players work hard enough in their technical ability up here now?
No, I don't. I think there's nothing wrong with going back in the ball for 10 minutes, left foot, right foot. We turns tricks with the boys and
Street football's kind of done now, innit?
just to get used to it. I feel when I watch other countries, you know, I feel even countries smaller than us, technically they look better than us and more comfortable on the ball than us. And I don't know, because I think we've got as good a kids as any, you know, up to a certain level, a certain age. I think everybody's kids are, you know, and I think it's just the way you develop and the way you say, give them that confidence to go and play. I'm not saying all kids are that. I'm sure there is a few diamonds out in the Wolf, you know, come through, but I don't think there's enough coming through, Tom. I think we're very limited in who, you mean the Scottish players, you know, I think.
Probably Lennon Miller. I mean, what advice would you, obviously you've worked with
Lennon Miller,
quality players, what advice would you give to Lennon
I
Miller
would
today?
just, for that boy, you know, I like what I've seen of him. You know, I think he's got a right opportunity. Don't curtail him, let him go. And you know, he'll still make mistakes, of course he will. But the only way he's going to get better is by making mistakes and give him that confidence and let him go and, you know, okay, they'll work on his weaknesses, but just go and encourage him to go and do what he's good at. And
I think it's obvious to me, the more games you play, the better you get.
of course.
Because all of a sudden, when you come in your first 10, 20 games, you're a wee bit, I don't know if I'm good enough to be playing here.
Aye.
And then maybe in 30, 40 games you go, well, maybe I am. And then the more games you play, you go, right, I settled in here, you know, I'm going to make a name for myself.
Aye, that's it.
I think that's the reason that most of the managers now say that young players don't get enough games.
Yeah, exactly. Because then they're saying, am I ever going to be good? And then it starts to play, and then they're saying, look, am I going to get the chance, the opportunity? I remember when I went from Clyde to Clydebank. I know, you know, back in the Championship, and Clydebank had a lot of good players at the time, as Clyde. But when I left, and I think I've struggled for the first 3 or 4 months when I'm in the team, you know, automatically I'm thinking, they paid money for you going, they're going to get in. And I went in, but I'm saying, I need to step up here, by the way. I'm not really showing out here, you know. Whereas I felt I'd done that at Clyde, you know, and maybe it was Craig Brown at the time. And Bill Monroe, God rest him, Bill was the manager at the time, and then Bill left, and Sam Henderson says, just go out and play the way you've been playing. And after that, I just felt, you know, as you're saying, it's not as if I was getting dropped out of the team. I was still playing, but then I says, I need to be better here.
Yeah, but that's another thing what you were saying as well, the reserve team football. If you were a young boy, say 17, 18, and then say you were going to play Rangers reserves,
Yeah.
they would have a team of experienced players. So all of a sudden, you're 16 years of age and you're playing against...
Aye.
Well, I was
players.
the exact same at Hibs. I think it was before you came in, KB, and it was under 21 league, but it was basically a reserve league.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And I was at Hibs.
5, you played.
So we had, I think Hearts pipped us that year. Hearts beat us 4-1 in the last game. It was out of us and them to win the reserve league. And they played all their first team players at Tynecastle and beat us 4-1. Andy Kirk scored 4. But anyway, before that, it was me and Kenny Miller were the two forwards when we were up against Perini and Colin Henry at Love Street. Dick Ardicat was the manager. I remember me and Kenny Miller, we came in and went, fuck, look at this 2 centre-halves, it's Perini and Colin Henry. What? And we ripped them. They weren't, I don't think they were born
but
but for us to go and test ourselves against them,
Yeah.
I scored a couple and Kenny scored a couple, we beat them 4-1 at Love Street, and just played, Charlie Miller was playing for Rangers. And you're just thinking to yourself, if you can play against that level, and it gives you a wee boost as well of confidence, because you're going, I've done really well against them. I've done really well. I could maybe do.
You would have missed this. KB wouldn't have, when way back in the year dot, the League Cup used to be whatever group the senior team was in, that's what the reserve team were in.
Yeah.
So that was only 16, and in our group was Rangers and Celtic. So we played Rangers and Celtic home and away. And my first game for Thistle against Ibrox was against Rangers, and they beat us 5-0. But you're playing at Ibrox. 16 years of age. And then you're playing the home game, and then I think Celtic took 6 or 7 off as well. But you're hardening yourself.
Of course, yeah.
I think, man. And I remember the very last game in the section, Celtic had to win by 12 goals to beat Rangers to promote to get into the quarterfinals. And I remember David McPallen saying to me, "I'm not going to play you today. I'm going to let one of the other boys play because I think Celtic are going to go for the jugular and it might just be too much." Celtic won 13-0.
You only playing?
You do your favour there, or See, we went to Ibrox when I was at Hibs. It was Eddie Turnbull, and Joe Harper was playing, right? And Joe scored a hat-trick that day. And I think they had Derek Perlane playing. Stuart Kennedy was in goals, and Joe scored 3, zipped him. Right? Honestly, let's see, just turned ping. And I'm playing at Ibrox, as I was saying. Joe scored the hat-trick. I think Ali McLeod was playing. Ali was coming back for injury. But Rangers are the first few team players out as well. Perlane, Stuart Kennedy. Trying to think. But it was made up with guys that weren't playing. And it was at the same time, whereas first team was playing at Easter Road, 3 o'clock. We were playing at Ibrox at 3 o'clock.
And you were getting a crowd in the reserve.
Getting a crowd, because ones that didn't want to travel through. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes you got a couple of thousand just sitting up in the main stand watching the game. But that's what I feel is missing. Honestly, I think kids, it's and it's just the way the games went. But for me, it's no for the benefit of the game. I think it can be detrimental to the game. I know maybe kids are more disciplined now, and they've got, when they get into the first teams, they're into first team squads, and all the nutritionists have got, and they live a different life from what you lived, Sorry, Tom. But I think that's the difference, and I know, and a lot of it's down to your fitness, and and you've got sports scientists in your ear, and that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I just think it's
amazing, because I think you're right.
Take it away from the skill factor.
I think you're right, because I think young players are more disciplined now in terms of their diet, in terms of not going out and all that. And
they want to look after themselves a bit better.
Better physical condition on it, but we're not producing any players that we used to do. So I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that, but.
See, with all these Adonises now, they'll look after the body, but you used to get them because of your part on your face, and your nice face, and all your handsome face, and you and the boys.
Right, KB, topic.
Right.
Manager, player, young player of the year. Who would be your SPFL manager of the year?
I think of, obviously, Brendan Rodgers. I think he's going to win the treble. I can't get by Brendan Rodgers. I know John McGlynn's had a great season. You've got
David Gray at Hibs.
David Gray, after the start they had in the season, for where he's got, definitely should be, is nominated. And John McGlynn, but I honestly can't. I know they say, but Celtic with resources, but it's still a hard thing to do. Go and win the treble, and I couldn't see by Brendan. Doesn't matter any Premier League that wins a treble. I think they should win the manager year. As I say, I know the boys have what they've got and what they've done. Falkirk have not won it yet. It'll be a big game on Friday for them. But John's had a great season as well. David, who else have we got here? Is it just
the 3? I think.
Just the 3. Is it just the 3?
Aye.
But look, they'll pick you. But for me personally, aimed at wins a treble.
Player of the year, Premiership player of the year.
I think it's got to
Callum
be
McGregor, Dyson Maeda, Nicholas Kuhn, Simon Murray.
Simon Murray's in a great shout.
Aye.
I watched that boy a few years ago, and I said he'd be a good shout for the Scotland team. He was at Dundee United at the time.
Aye.
He's see if Dundee escape relegation. I think Maeda will get it.
Aye.
I think Maeda will get it because where he's playing, he's not a striker. Well, is he a striker? Is he? But for just the way he's took over, not just Kyogo's left, but I don't think you could get by it. And And if he's in a treble winning team, you know, what would you, you know, it'd be hard to argue against it. But the other guys that have been nominated have been, McGregor's had a great season as well, you know, driving them on. And you could, I'd say McGregor or Maeda. But the other two boys deserve to be nominated for it, for the, you know, the seasons I've had.
Young Player of the Year, Arnie Engels, Hamza Gamani, James Wilson, Lennon Miller.
Lennon Miller for me.
Lennon Miller?
I know he'd been, Lennon Miller, Boy Wilson's had a good. For me, Engels, I
What's your
think,
opinion on Engels? You think that's £11 million?
for me, the jury's still out. I think he looks as if he could be a right top player. I don't know if he's still a wee bit over because McGregor's in there, but then again against Rangers when they get beat, he looked lost. Again, he's looked lost in a few games for me. I know he looks a player. I think he could be a top player, but I think if you put Engels up for sale now, I don't think you would even get a third of the money for what Celtic paid for him. And I'm not being nasty, but that's just my personal opinion about the boy now. You know, he's yet to convince me. I don't think he grabs a game. I don't think he.
For that type of money, you're looking for more?
Aye, I know they're saying, right, he's only 21. On 20 years at 21. But they've paid that money for him, right? And it's not the boys' fault they paid that money. Is that laying heavily on him? I feel as if he's got, you know, this type of player. He could very well in the next 2 seasons be playing at the top team in England. He could, but right now, I'm not seeing it with him. I think he's not stepped up for me.
Who makes your ultimate five-a-side team, KB, just to finish? Goalkeeper, guys you've played with, or guys you've played with, or guys you've coached. We'll go for both.
Oh, right. Guys I've played with. Right.
Goalkeeper.
It need to be Jim Gallagher.
Obviously didn't play with Ruffy.
I didn't play with Ruffy. No, Jim Gallagher.
Paul's there.
Yes, Big Gal. Fergie at Hamilton was great, I know, great keeper, but I thought Big Gal was just. I remember Jock Steen saying when we were away in a semi-pro thing, and he says a Big Gal had been with a more fanciable club than Clydebank, he could probably been come into the Scotland squad. But for me, Big Gal was.
Just when you mentioned Clydebank there, obviously they've just won the West of Scotland. They've won the West of Scotland. They're going to the playoff to possibly get into the Lowland League. Is it great to see them back on the way back up? And obviously you played them in the Premier League.
I went to a pint thing in November, you know, and the guys that were there, you know, so enthusiastic, and they've got a great back. And wrong what happened, you know, the way it finished up for them. But I was delighted to see them going back, and I think, you know, they get back. They were always you know, no big support, but very loyal, well supported team. I always look for the result. You know, I'm delighted that, you know, they get through in the playoffs and. There's a chance for them, but I'm sure every day they'll get plenty of backing. I think. You know.
Two defenders. I'll go one defender. I don't see you being a kind of defensive coach in the fives, so I'll go one defender and 3 forward-thinking players. Centre half.
Don't know if it'd be a centre half.
Dan Bernardi or Doumbé.
They weren't even in my top 300. I'd rather play with 2 men short. Sorry about that. That's not nice, I know. Well, I played with Danny McGrain. And Danny was, I don't know if Danny would have fancied a game at fives, to be fair. God damn you, go with me. Jimmy Fallon's a great centre half. Budgie McGee. So am I going for a centre half or am I going for a.
Go for a defender.
I'll do when he want to play 5 a side, that he's an hour. I go with Danny McGrain.
Go
with Danny.
2 midfield players. You can include yourself.
Right, I remember now, before you pick this one, remember you were associated with the club Unfiltered.
Yes.
And there was a midfield not too far away from where we're sitting just now. So I would just like you to think before you actually name your 2 midfield players.
Can I name 2 teams? Can I name a reserve? Can I name a reserve side?
He's not putting Peter in his team. You can't put Peter in his team.
Well, I thought you said professional, you know.
No, any team.
And I get out of this one. I love playing with Peter in the Dickler team, but.
There's only room for one Maverick. Only room for one left-footed Maverick.
Only one Bonaparte. Well, I've put myself in it, Tom.
Why not?
Aye.
Who would I like to play alongside me? God almighty.
Who's that banging the window out there?
I'm staying professional, Tom.
Aye.
I'm going to go. Oh God, Alec Taylor, Hamilton, Reid, Stevie Clark, Albert Craig. I'm going to go with Albert Craig. I'd Marty Shoes at Clydebank, but Davy Shanks at Clydebank. If I was sitting a holding player, it would be Davy Shanks.
Right.
Sitting with a guy.
Remember you're playing fives, you're not playing with a holder, that's how we're...
Right, got me right.
That's how we're not players. You're playing a holder, playing the fives.
Albert Craig.
Right, striker. Striker you played with Bobby.
I played with Bobby.
I heard Bobby was I've never seen Bobby Williamson play, but I heard very, very aggressive.
Oh, Bobby was just... Bobby wanted a 50-50. Sorry, Ruff, he hated goalkeepers, right?
Aye.
He used to say he gives a 50-50 the keeper. See if you gave him a 60-40 in his favour, he used to slow down to make it a 50-50. He used to smash him.
Mark Riley, we had Mark Riley in the show and he said he was the most aggressive wee guy I'd ever met.
It's just he did. He just boot at MD. Remember we played Hearts. We'll give you a quick one. We played Hearts at the Kilberry, right? And Bobby, the ball got through to Whitey Kid. Whitey Kid never seen him, and Bobby smashed him, right? Whitey Kid knew who he was, but he thought it was Budgie McGee. So he's after Budgie McGee, he was running after Budgie, and that one, Whitey fight Budgie, Whitey doing Budgie's like, what's the mean? I never touched you, I never touched you. Bobby lathered him, what a tackle. He nearly started a riot.
Striker.
I'm going to go, a guy I played with at school with and was a top striker, John Brogan, like Hamilton Actors.
Okay.
Aye.
I played with big George McCluskey. And
Is that the John Brogan that played with Celtic, no?
No.
Is that Jim Brogan?
St Johnstone.
Jim Brogan?
John Brogan partnered McCoist when they played at St Johnstone. In fact, there another fullback I've not put in, Jim Holmes.
Was David Cooper not Clydebank you were there?
No, Coop left in 70. I played with Coop in Hamilton District.
Right.
But if it had been allowed, I'd have put, but we've said it's professional. Coop left in 78 and I came in 80. I played with Coop with this and Coop was some player, but I'm talking about, see, but Jim Holmes.
Yeah, that's your fives team. I should get five.
No, but I never played professional with Jim.
Aye,
to be fair. Aye, and we get Tam Coyne and Bobby. Bobby's not here, so he can't, but I'll find out about it anyway, so I'm putting John Brogan in. I have another argument. So you don't pick me for, I'll say Tam was like, you can't pick Bobby.
No, listen, Kavey, it's been brilliant to have you in today.
Thanks
for coming in, and thanks to Ruffy as well. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the PLZ YouTube channel.